All righty. Good morning. I'm Dr. Timothy Beck with NeuroFiT Connections.
And I'm Jackie Beck with NeuroFit Connections.
So, Coach Jackie, NeuroFit was your vision.
Yes.
What was the original plan? What do you got?
The original plan was I had been working with children in this capacity, but I wanted something more for them. And I wanted really to get to the younger group to prevent having 10, 12, 15-year-olds getting help when they could be helped much younger, to prevent a lot of the issues that they deal with in school, being, bullied or struggling. Why not get them younger so they don't go through that phase,
Okay.
right?
So, what was about the idea with Neuro and Fit?
Your brain and your body. You can't have a healthy brain without moving your body. So I really wanted to instill in families that moving your body, climbing trees, going for walks together, riding bikes, that's where the kids get a healthy body and brain.
So, you wanted to connect the neurology and the fitness.
Exactly, exactly. Very important to do.
Excellent. So, Ms. Avanti, I understand you have some questions for us.
I do. I have some fun questions from different places. And so the first question is from someone named Melody J. When do you start to see warning signs of autism, and how can you tell it's autism?
Oh, that's a great question. You can see them. I had someone actually tell me they saw it within a few months of their second child, because the first child, they did have two children with autism, um, one to a lesser degree, but she saw it in her second child much, much sooner because she knew what to look for. And some of that is with an infant, they should be having eye contact and wanting to look in the direction of mom's voice. That's a natural thing for a baby. They hear mom's voice because they've been listening to it in utero. They turn towards mom's voice, look at mom's face. And when you have a child that doesn't do that, it's not the only thing, but it's definitely a sign you want to keep an eye on. That I think would be the first thing. And then as they move their bodies, are they doing it symmetrically? Are they learning to roll over or crawl evenly on both sides? Both look strong. Are they hitting those benchmarks at 3, 6, 9, a year old? Those are big warning signs as well. Anytime a child doesn't hit a mark, whether it be too early or too late, that's a red flag that something might be amiss with their development of their neurology. That would be a great way to start, I think. Anything to add to that?
No,
Any other thoughts?
I think that's perfect.
Yeah, I think those benchmarks are much more important than I, as a parent, gave value to. I thought, well, they'll eventually walk or they'll eventually do XYZ. And that's not the case. There is a window where it should happen naturally, getting ready for the next stage and getting rid of those primitive reflexes so that we can have those next developmental milestones met. And that's when we run into problems when we don't see that happening. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. And then just Jess, no last initial or full name, says, how do I get my pediatrician to refer me for an autism diagnosis before the age of 3? What are some button words? I'm assuming like she needs, what can she say to have hot buttons? I don't know what that means all the way, but
I think what she's looking for is the key terms to say to the doctor to get them to pay attention to what she's asking. In a lot of industries, there's that wording that if you have that wording, then they're like, oh, wait, not only do you know what you're asking me, but you know what you want and you've done your research. They start paying attention to that. To get a diagnosis, I would probably tell them they're not meeting their milestones, and I understand that that's an important thing. And I'm worried about the development moving forward. And show them the key thing, I think, for a doctor would be a research paper. And we have lots of those. Since we're working directly with the neurologist doing the research, we can get them research on anything they want having to do with that development. And perhaps that's when the doctor might listen.
okay.
That's probably the approach I would take.
Yeah. I'm not sure that there are any specific button words. And the doctor may be waiting because they feel like if they don't if they give the diagnosis too soon, it's meaningless. And I'm not sure that that's the case. As a parent, you need to be the one who advocates for your child. Doctor's not going to do it for you, so you need to push.
And then a second opinion is always very valuable because they are diagnosing autism earlier.
Right.
It used to be no sooner than 3 years. Now I've seen it as young as 2 years,
Right.
which is definitely through my training and that certification that I went through with the Behavioral Institute. They will give it younger now. It's 2 years, 18 months, even a few signs. They'll keep an eye on the child. And but the thing, I think the hard part for the doctors in their defense is that autism takes so many different shapes and forms. And you've met one autistic child, you've met one because they're all so different. Yes, they have key things. A lot of people like to settle on, well, my child is 2 and doesn't have eye contact. Okay, there could be a couple reasons for that. One would be autism, but as we know, our nephew, Joshua, has great eye contact. He always did, except for as an infant. But then he quickly gained great eye contact. So if you base it on that, you would not see it with him, and he was autism level 3. So I think I would probably hit up my doctor with a research paper. That's probably what I would do, and show them that you can diagnose it younger than 3.
Or if you're not getting the results you want, get a second opinion.
Yeah, yeah. You don't stop till you get what you want when you know what's wrong with your child. And mother's gut is always right. So good for mom.
But I think it's important to know, at least if they want to come here, if they're getting the diagnosis because they're looking for now, I can do treatment. We don't require a diagnosis, so it's not something um, that's required for us to do what we do, or ADHD or whatever. But if you're getting a diagnosis because I want state funding, for example, that's a whole different thing.
Good point. Good point. Because we will take them, assess them, and treat what we see in the assessment. So,
Perfect.
yeah.
And then I'm going to be specific with some screen names or locations because we're going to post this on the website and then post the link on our Quora page so that people have the answers to their questions. So Mike W. in Houston, Texas, who told us where he is, he said, I have a 2.5-year-old son who is extremely hyperactive. I call it fun loving and ready to play, but other people are labeling it ADHD. I also have ADHD, but am I to assume that my son also does because of my diagnosis, or can I allow him to be a fun loving 2.5-year-old while I can? What age do I start questioning ADHD? There's a couple questions in there.
Yeah, there's a couple questions in there, and they're all great. I think those are really good questions. I wouldn't assume he has it, because dad has it. There's a good chance, but it's a genetic trait. It's not a genetic. What I would say is I would watch what he's eating. Red dye, blue dye, yellow dye, those will all cause hyperactivity. Processed foods will cause hyperactivity. So if he's staying away from that and he still has this child that's very hyper, then he probably has a good chance that he is ADHD. But as long as he's not, as long as he's able to get through a day, I mean, he's not in school, so I don't know. I don't know that if it's not a problem, I would address it later. It sounds like he wants to wait to address it if it is an issue. Like school age is what I'm thinking.
Well, I would start to look for, is he exhibiting signs of not being able to focus and concentrate, which is
What he needs to.
and when he needs to, it's going to be important in school. So if he's able to, for example, sit down and watch a movie on television for half an hour and be fine with that, then I wouldn't be as concerned. If he's like, no, he can't even sit still for that, then you might want to look at, okay, gonna start to think about doing something as it starts to approach school age. If you're gonna homeschool him, that's again a different issue.
Right. It's still going to affect him in the future if he has it.
Right.
So other things I would look for to see if he might have it is Keep them away from screens also. Those give them a reward system, which school and things don't, and so he's depending on that to focus. Yeah, there's an issue. So we want to keep them away from screens no more than an hour a day and watch the food and see what happens with that first. And if there's still a hyperactivity issue, yeah, he probably does have ADHD. It's not a hard thing to correct, and I would probably do it as soon as possible. Clearly, that's up to him if he wants to wait till it's school age. That's where I would start with that. Yeah, and keep him moving and keep an eye on, can he remember things that I've told him? How many steps can he do? You know, 2-step directions, 3-step directions. He's 2, so his attention span's going to be short now anyway.
Sure.
But he should be able to sit for a few minutes and listen and focus and follow instruction. If that's not happening, then I would address it. If he's able to do that at 2, expectations aren't really high or long for a 2-year-old, but you certainly want to start in a good position and give them the best outcome moving forward by addressing it. So definitely food, screen time, get them outside, see how that goes. If there's still an issue, then I would probably get a diagnosis, and then address it through us. We can help them with that.
Okay. And then this one's always fun. Barbie Girl 27 says, do vaccines truly cause autism?
I'm going to answer that very straightforward. No, they do not cause it. What the neurologists have found, and this comes straight from research from Dr. Malillo, what they have found is vaccines do affect the child's development if they're already predisposed to an imbalance. So, for instance, if there was some stress, trauma, maybe mom has some imbalance, dad might have imbalance. People forget dad plays a part in the outcome of a child. If they have anything imbalance wise, then yeah, vaccines can push them over the cliff, is out how they put it. That would definitely affect them. So vaccines don't cause it, but they definitely don't help if you're already predisposed to and already have an imbalance.
So what do you mean by imbalance?
Well, like I said, the trauma or stress of a birth, trauma and stress during pregnancy, maybe mom and dad have any kind of mental illness in the family, that can all.
Say imbalance, like physical imbalance, I mean, describe that.
Okay. Well, it could be a neurological imbalance, like I said, mental illness in the family, and that could look like bipolar or ADHD or anything anybody in the family has. That's a predisposition. And then the trauma or stress, maybe during pregnancy or giving birth, that's going to change. So what that would look like is maybe not meeting a milestone, or maybe not being high on that APGAR scale or something like that. Then you hit them with a vaccination that their body, because the body and gut are as one, it does affect them physically. So if you give them a vaccine, that's going to kind of push them over the edge and make an imbalance that's there bigger. So then they won't meet a milestone that maybe they might have been late on, but met.
So you're not talking about hemispheric imbalance.
I'm not talking hemispheric at this point, they're a newborn.
Okay.
You wouldn't know that. Yeah. Good question. I like that question. Good one. Yeah.
Carry on.
Carry on. That's my daughter.
Carry on.
Okay. Leah Baker. Leah Baker in Missouri. How do I prepare my child with Down syndrome for kindergarten?
Ooh, that's a really good one. We have not worked with Down syndrome, and I have a big center, Gigi's Place. You might know what that is. And we really want to help Down syndrome. I have a lot of friends with Down syndrome, and what they have done is she has worked with her child in a hemispheric way. She's a chiropractor. They have a business, husband and wife, both are chiropractors. So what they did was they learned the Malillo method. They figured out which hemisphere, because Down syndrome is not left or right. just like anyone else. It can be different in each child. So she found out the hemisphere and she started working with him, getting him moving, working with that hemisphere, strengthening him, teaching him. He grew and changed, and she had him assessed at the kindergarten. And the funniest thing happened. This is such a great, I just love the story. I love the little boy. His name is Brady. And she brought him to the school and said, I would like my son assessed to see if he meets the requirements to enter kindergarten. And they looked at him and said, well, he's Down syndrome. He's going to go into special ed. And she said, can you please assess him? I want to know where he stands against kids his age entering kindergarten. And they refused. Well, she pushed the issue because we love moms that push the issue. She knew he had a lot of skills. And they finally agreed to assess him. And she took him in the room and told him one of the things that you need to be able to do at that age is stack blocks and make a tower. And she asked him to do that and he refused. He just looked at her like, really? And she went out there and said, see, he cannot do the simplest of things. So my friend went up to her son and said, Brady, I know you can do it. Dad knows you can do it. She doesn't know you can do it. Will you please just do this for her? I know it's silly. I know you can do much more, but if you could just please do this for her. So they went back in the room and he rolled his eyes. He stacked the blocks and then like, come on. So he was able to meet the requirements. She continued to test him. He met the requirements for kindergarten because mom had worked with him. So what the working with him would look like is making sure he has, I mean, we could certainly probably issue out what a child at that age should be able to do and talk to the school what they should be able to do and work towards that. Down syndrome kids are amazing. They're always going to have that extra chromosome, but they can certainly learn. They can certainly grow a brain just like anybody else and gain skills so they can have a job and move out on their own and do all of that. So good for mom for wanting to push that Down syndrome and not accept it as, because they would have just stuck them in special ed, right? And not been able to be all that they can be. And that's my passion, is helping kids be all that they can be, no matter what someone tells them.
Well, we see that though a lot where a parent treats their child like they're stupid because they can't talk or because there's something else going on, and that kind of indicates, oh, this, and it's like that's not the case.
Right. And they think there's nothing you can do about it. Well, there's a lot. If you have a brain, you can grow it. Simple.
And treat the children like they're intelligent, so that
Right.
they begin to exhibit that.
Yeah, I really have I think the big thorn in my side is that when I see a parent with a nonverbal child and they treat them like they're not intelligent. Well, they are probably more intelligent than you are in some areas. When they're nonverbal, that just shows you what a big gap they have. It's called unevenness of skills. And we don't need to get into the weeds of how and what the anatomy of that is and the workings of the brain, but just to say that it's a weakness on one side of the brain. So we address that, we strengthen that side of the brain. Meanwhile, what's been happening is the other side has been growing, and these kids have savant skills. They're geniuses because they can't speak. That's just telling you there's a weakness on the other side. So when they do speak or use RPM, rapid prompting method, it's amazing what they say. We recently in our seminar in New York had a 4-year-old say the mother had just learned the rapid prompting method and said he wanted to be an aerospace engineer. He was 4. How did he even know those words? He wasn't speaking. They thought he wasn't very smart. He was extremely intelligent. He is extremely intelligent. So don't underestimate those nonverbals. Any child with a label. Yeah, they're amazing.
There you go.
Yeah. I hope that answered that question.
I think so. Okay, then we have Anonymous. Okay, so Anonymous. Anonymous says, my ex-husband and I share joint custody and are struggling with boundaries and rules for our 12-year-old daughter who has undiagnosed social anxieties or disorders, and manic depressive disorder diagnosed. I believe we should be on a vegan diet. Is there any research or information to help us co-parent in facts concerning diet and disability?
I have not personally read anything, but I'm sure it's out there and I can certainly help her find it. Diet is huge. I don't know if vegan is what I would recommend. I just haven't done the research. Um, that's not a question I've heard before, but I would love to help her find the answers by, you know, if she leaves her information, I'm happy to send her what I can find. But I definitely would. Anxiety is a big thing, and it's on either hemisphere. That's a really big thing right now with a growing number of age groups. But I would start with, again, processed food, dyes, those are going to show up as a lot of things in anxiety and ADHD are some of the bigger ones. So if we watch our diet, and I'm not saying spend a bunch of money on just organics, I'm talking just stay away from the processed food and the dyes, sugar. There's a lot of ways around eating a lot of sugar, and that's affecting the kids in a way that comes out looking like a big neurological problem. And sometimes it's not, but sometimes it is part of it. So I would always start with the diet, something you can control. Um, but yes, there's a definitely, if she's suffering from those items, there's a neurological imbalance. Um,
I think that, when it comes to co-parenting with divorce, sometimes as parents, we can make it about us, not about our kid. Um, and, the important person in the relationship is the child. And so just because dad suggested something, just because mom suggested something, doesn't make it wrong. It just means that you need to be open-minded enough to actually look at it and say, okay, I agree with this, I don't agree with this. Having an open conversation, because otherwise what's going to happen is the person who's going to end up suffering in the end is the kid, because they're not getting the need to
right.
be happy and healthy.
I do like that these parents they may not be together, but they're very concerned, which is fantastic. Um, well, I want to make sure we answer the question though.
So did we answer the question?
Um, I believe,
They
well, the actual question is, do we have any research to help them co-parent
oh,
better in facts
hmm.
as it relates to diet or disorder?
So really they were talking about a vegan diet, if that's going to help,
Yeah, we
right?
don't know. I mean, we know that diet does play an important part in.
Diet definitely plays a huge role.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what her issue is or not, but I'm sure there's research out there. It's a matter of, finding it and seeing what it says. So I'm happy to do my research. Matter of fact, I have a meeting with Dr. Malello on Tuesday, and he is the person I would probably first start with. He and Dr. Peter Snyder.
Yeah. So we can ask that question on Tuesday.
If she wants to leave you her information, I will do my research and find out for her.
So I don't know who she is, but what I will say on the video is wherever this is being watched at neurofitconnections.com, you can request a free consultation. And if you just say, hey, I'm the person who had the conversation regarding a vegan diet, I'm sure any one of us will know who you are.
Yep, that is true. That's a good one. Yeah,
That's better.
perfect.
All right. So we have Mia F in Charlotte. How much screen time is actually recommended at the age of 3?
No more than 1 hour. Yep, per day. Yes, per day.
You've had your hour for your life. You're done.
Yeah, they really need to be sent outside till the lights come on, right? Just like we grew up with. Yeah, it's been a very standard thing. The kids 2 and under, 3 and under really should not have screen time at all. We know that's not going to probably happen with a lot of households. It's just too easy, and the kids, they have fun. But after that, up until probably high school-ish, maybe middle school, 1 hour is really all they should have, because what's happening is it's increasing the left hemisphere and decreasing your right hemisphere, and creating a lot of, see, they're getting a dopamine rush when they get that reward system, and that creates this need for it. So we know what that feels. I mean, how many of us guilty here of scrolling? Dopamine rush. So they don't want to stop. So it becomes this, and there's constant short little flashes of things. They start depending on that and needing that. And what's really important, I want parents to know out there is let your kids get bored. Let them be bored. When our kids would come to us and say, "Hey, Dad," I remember this. "Hey, Dad, I'm bored." "Hi, bored. I'm Dad." Such a dad joke, but it worked. They went out and they figured out something else to do because they didn't want to hear that again.
What? I didn't like my dad jokes?
I'm sure they love them. What happens in the brain when you're bored is after, depending on the age group, after a certain amount of minutes of being bored, the creativity clicks on and they start thinking about, oh, if I did this, I could do that. Oh, I could do that. Oh, what if we made this, built a fort, or, so the kids aren't getting that now. And I think that's a huge disservice to them. Let them be bored. They don't need screen time. They really don't. I know
That's,
it's hard. I do know it's hard.
I
But yeah.
feel personally attacked in that answer now. That one's hard for me too. It's hard for all
Okay.
parents. Okay, I
Yeah.
hope I'm saying this right. Joycelyn, her question is, are the helpful, quote unquote, apps and learning programs more beneficial or hurtful? And do those count towards screen time if they're learning?
That's a really good one because I think that's a huge struggle for a lot of parents. And I think that is a big question all parents ask. Well, they're learning, so is it still bad? Yeah, it is. They could be learning those with manipulatives at home instead of on the screen. Now, the whole screen thing is a lot of people say, but their hand-eye coordination is better because of them playing this game, or they've learned this. But what the screen is still doing is more damage than good that they're benefiting from.
So increasing or depleting the right side, as you already mentioned,
It's still doing
yeah,
that.
and increasing the left, and we're still not getting that balance that we really want.
It's still creating a gap. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still, yeah. So they may benefit by, oh, he learned how to spell, or he learned how to read, or they're faster hand-eye coordination. But the benefits don't outweigh what it's doing to the brain. That's, yeah, that's the truth of the matter. So let them learn with, the way we learned. We learned with life. Yeah, it's okay to be bored.
And so Jenna from Gardner, I'm assuming that's North Carolina. All right. My second grader is really struggling in school, but I'm hesitant to have him tested for learning disabilities. I don't want him to face the stigma of having the learning disability label. What should I do?
I think that's another really good question that a lot of parents suffer with. I have had other parents say, you don't want them tested because then they'll feel like there's something wrong with them. So, first of all, he's young to have that concern. That was the first thing I noticed. Um, and I feel like if she calls me, does her homework in any other way, she doesn't have to go through the diagnosis. If he's struggling in school,
Have them assessed. I mean,
exactly, have him assessed, and he doesn't need a diagnosis to be assessed by us. And we will see in each area, and we still don't care about a label. We will just treat what we see in the assessment because we assess all areas: ocular, cognition, auditory, physical. We make sure they're at age level for everything, fine motor skills. We're testing everything: balance, coordination, agility, all of that. So if we see something amiss there, that's what we're going to address. We don't care about a label. So she doesn't have to go through that. But there's not very many people. She's in Gardner. That's doable to come here. But not many. You don't find a lot of places that can do what we do. So luckily she's close enough to come and get assessed. So I would recommend signing up for an assessment, and we just take it from there. And what we tell the child, because we don't tell them, oh, your right brain is weak and you have this issue. No, we just say, you know what, we're going to make everything that's a little challenging for you, we're going to make it easy, and you're going to be unstoppable. You're amazing. We just want to make you even more amazing. And a lot of times the kids, I ask all the kids, what are your goals? What do you want to be better at? What do you want to be easier? And most of the time they say reading is hard for me. Okay, so we know that there could be some ocular issues. We know there could be some primitive reflexes preventing them from being able to handle that and make it easier. So then we address the factor that's causing us struggles, and that's how we handle it. We don't need a diagnosis. He doesn't need to go through that. We don't want them to feel bad about themselves because there's no bad kids.
No
There's
bad
just
kids.
there's no bad kids. They're just doing the best they can. So that's what I would do. Get them assessed.
Okay. I have Micah Raleigh. 20. I'm a 26-year-old female with autism. Are there any recommendations for children in the womb, diet or other related, that can help prevent or reduce autism?
Absolutely. I wish more people would ask that question, or more people would look at this as the numbers in this industry are growing, unfortunately, is before you decide to have a baby or during your pregnancy, let's do the best we can to prevent these things. That is a wonderful thing to ask. And yes, you want to, again, processed foods, um, hormone imbalancing type things that can be even the lotion, the shampoo that you're using. All of those are hormone disruptors. So you need to address everything in your life as clean as possible. And clean, I mean no processed foods, no dyes. Sugar is a huge thing. Alcohol, even, which I hope a lot of pregnant people are not indulging in. Some do. But I was also making sure you're mentally and physically at your best, right? Emotionally, mentally, and you have very low stress. If you have any type of anxiety or anything, address that now, because the chemical imbalance that is in our bodies, and that's what it is, um, gets passed on. And we don't, and that's what I'm talking about when we went back to the, when you asked, we were talking about in utero imbalance. That's what we're talking about. Let's prevent as many imbalances as we can control. We can't control everything, but we can certainly do the best we can. And that is to eat, and stress is a huge thing. The cortisol level, all of that gets passed on to the baby, not giving them the best start. So yeah, be mentally and physically at your best.
And take the preventive vitamins, take good care of yourself, being stress-free.
And we're talking, yeah, absolutely. Meditation is great to keep you in a good space.
As you talked about the products, there's an app called Yucca. Is it Yucca?
Yeah, I was going to mention that. There is an app called Yucca, Yuka. The picture is a carrot. And what that app does is you can scan any barcode in the store, especially of personal products like shampoos, lotions, um, products like that. And I think they're doing cleaning supplies. And you can scan the barcode and it will tell you exactly what's in it, how bad it is, and it'll rate it from, good to really bad. There's a lot of levels in between, and you can decide whether you want to use that product or not. And I will go into the store and I will scan oh, no, that's bad, put that back and find one that is good. It'll also give you alternatives. So if you have something that's bad, but you like that product, well, it'll tell you what product is better. So that's a great app to have. It helps out.
Yucca. And I'll tag that down below once I find it. Okay. Number 10 is autism. Okay. This is an anonymous post, and it says, "My daughter attends our neighborhood elementary school, and I'm really just not satisfied with it. I know I have the option to send her to another school in the district or a public, private, charter school, but I don't know how to choose. She does have an LD, and I know I need to consider that as I look at schools, but how do I pick a specific school for her that's not based around special education?"
Well, I don't know if that's not really my purview, but,
Yeah, I would say with, I said, curious to know what kind of learning disability she has. But the Wake County school system doesn't actually, in my humble opinion, those that I've talked to, doesn't do a really great job with kids.
I don't, yeah, I think there's a lack I have heard that.
So I would go more towards a charter, or if you have the wherewithal, homeschooling would be good.
But I have a better idea.
There we go.
How about we get rid of it?
Oh, what?
Yeah, I know. Let's get to the root of the problem and get rid of it. So have her assessed, and clearly she's going to have some primitive reflexes. We do those exercises. We treat the hemisphere that needs the help, and no more learning disability. How about we do that?
Right.
And then we don't have to worry about that. Let's give her a better start than hopefully getting the right teacher or the right school. Let's help her out moving forward and change the trajectory of her life by addressing that at the root. That's my advice.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what I'd like to do.
Okay. And this is our last but most liked question. So a ton of people liked it. So Matt only put some part of North Carolina. So
Okay.
my son is age 7, diagnosed. Oh, no. At the age of 7, my son was diagnosed with Asperger's due to social issues. Now it doesn't exist. Am I to only assume that he has autism?
No, no, I would not assume that. He's saying it went away. He's no longer socially.
I think he's saying Asperger's doesn't exist. It's now part of it.
Oh, it is. They just stopped using the term. It's just a very high functioning autistic child. Yes, that I wouldn't assume. Maybe he's just a little socially awkward. That doesn't mean he's autistic.
Right. But
He might have anxiety, and that's why he doesn't want to engage with people. There could be a lot of reasons for that. Um, I don't know. I would never assume a child's autistic. All the traits are all so different. He might just
but then again, I'm
have an
saying
overactive right side, which when you have an overactive right side, it looks like that social anxiety because they're overthinking everything they've ever said to somebody. They're reliving that conversation, or they're worried about what that person thought of them when they spoke. So they tend to be socially awkward because they're afraid of how they're appearing. That's not autism. So I would have them assessed to figure that out, or let's just get rid of the issue altogether. Again, assess them and let's address that.
Okay.
The answer is no, don't assume it though.
Couple things that it's probably good to do a call to, because all this question says is at the age of 7. And so is your son still 7? When was diagnosed? How long ago was this? But I'm going to leave this one up to you on whether or not you want to go through a few of the comments that were left underneath Matt's post to get rid of them. Some of them are a little wild, but
Okay.
to at least have experts address them, I think that's best.
I love wild. Let's do it. Let's do it.
So the first comment underneath his post was Asperger's was removed because Hans Asperger was a Nazi and collaborated in the murder of children with disabilities.
Okay. So that's their comment to him asking this question.
Yeah, that's why they're saying that Asperger's is no longer a valid condition. So it was just made up by this man named Hans Asperger's, who was killing children with disabilities.
So they wanted to get rid of the word Asperger's because of that.
well, yeah. So we're not getting rid of the disorder and the conditions, the symptoms, and that's not a disease, but the disorder itself. But you're getting rid of the name. That doesn't change the validity of having this.
Well, I think it's a simple comment about why they got rid of Asperger's.
Right, I agree.
Yeah, that is pretty wild. I cannot tell you if it's the truth or not, but I can certainly find out.
Okay.
I don't think that helps the man at all to know that.
Right.
Okay.
It's
Someone
interesting.
else a little interesting, but I just
Yeah, it
I
was
don't
really,
want I don't want that comment to be perceived as it was not a real diagnosis to begin with, and it was just something that was conjured in hate when it was a formal diagnosis at some point, it sounds like. So,
yeah, right.
okay. So the next comment says, um, Asperger's diagnosis typically means that your child had a hard time regulating their emotions. Most of the time, it was completely misdiagnosed, and that's why it was removed. Other emotions and things of that nature don't call someone autistic. And if you are autistic, you have a lot more problems than just regulating your emotions. I would think that Asperger's would be a symptom of just everyday teenagers growing up at some point.
I disagree with the last part. I agree with the beginning of that. Um, I don't think it has, I don't think if someone's diagnosed Asperger's or you suspect your child's Asperger, it's more than regulation, first off. It's the social ineptness. It could look like, sometimes it looks like an awkward social person with ADHD because they tend to have their life in what looks like a disarray, piles of stuff, disorganized. That looks like a typical teenager. Um, but that's not how they're feeling inside. Inside, they're feeling differently. And you would have to have them again assess to find out, is it a typical teenage thing? Is it ADHD? Because there's a lot of people use ADHD as a dumping ground, by the way. So again, we don't trust every diagnosis that comes through the door. Um, but I wouldn't assume it's autism. I wouldn't assume it's a typical teenager. I just would want to test those primitive reflexes.
Yeah, no, the other.
And you aren't, well, you would start with the primitive reflexes and then you would know. Because again, just like autism, Asperger's looks different to everybody. And you can interpret as, oh, that's an awkward teenager. They'll outgrow it. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. You don't know how they're feeling on the inside though. How their brain is, how they're speaking to themselves in their head. What's going on in there. That's what we need to know. Did that address that? I think I might have added too much, which I tend to do. That's okay.
All right. Okay, so the last one that I think is good, it's not anonymous. It says Alfred the Jones.
Right.
His was positive. He says, I'm an adult 21 and thankfully don't have to go to school anymore. But I will tell you the majority of the things that I was experiencing, both socially or with friends, whatever we want to call it, was not a direct symptom of what they called Asperger's. I am high functioning autistic. I learned that through this all. I do recommend that you get a re diagnosis, but I am not the expert. So I guess that's my question, LOL. So he wants to know, do we recommend now that Asperger's is no longer in this platform? Because I don't know if Asperger's is no longer, but do we recommend getting a new diagnosis?
Yes, absolutely. I think the knowledge is power. The more information you get, um,
Yeah, I think I'd go back to, I mean, what's the purpose of diagnosis? So if your purpose is I need, state funding, I need whatever, then absolutely get diagnosed. If you look, I just want to solve the problem, then I would say, come here first because you're in traditional Western medicine, it's gonna get managed, not solved. So diagnosis is just going to be another label that's put on somebody to manage the problem, not solve it. If we're looking at, do we want to get rid of all the signs and symptoms and issues related to autism or to high functioning autism or to Asperger's or whatever this is labeled? Yeah, they'd come here and we'd assess them and then take steps to correct it.
perfect. Yes, absolutely.
Then,
Mhm.
And then I have one Google Q&A that was not a part of our live Q&A. Can we ask that now?
no, I'm sorry, not
Yeah,
Google.
absolutely.
No,
And
I'm sorry.
post that on our Google page. Okay, so
Yeah.
this person said, do you service states outside of the United States? I live in Poland and AFAIK, AFAIK. is the only psychiatrist or psychologist in my city that is able to diagnose or treat adults. The backlog is about 7 months. We need to find different, um, and then it just says dot, dot, dot. So I'm assuming how I saved it, it cut off. So I think he wants to know if there's an at-home program in the United States for people who live in Poland.
Okay, I do have an answer for this. It's a costly one. Well, it doesn't have to be, I guess. Okay, so the short answer is yes, get Dr. Malello's book to disconnected kids and work through the assessment and the work there. Um, I don't like to assess online because I want the primitive reflexes tested correctly. So if you have somebody that's there that can help them, they can do that. I do know other doctors that will do it virtually. So if they contact me, we can have a conversation. I can walk them through what to do next. Really, I think that's the best answer for that. It's just, let's have a private conversation about that, and I'll, I can give them a great starting point, on how to move forward. I love that they want to do something. So let's talk about it on a personal level. What do you think?
I agree. And if they want to come here and visit us, we can certainly do the assessment and then send them home with here's what you need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. We will do that. I do want my hands on to test those primitive reflexes, give them a home program to do and take it back and do virtual call-ins and check and see the progress.
Yeah.
We can certainly do that.
We work with people all over the world.
I have worked with people all over the world, Russia, China, Africa. I never had anyone in Poland though.
Yeah, that's nice, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did.
Used to do his exercises in the hallway at night.
Yeah, he would in front of the elevator because his apartment was so small he had to go in the hallway. He would send me videos. Yeah, we did do program virtually. I just didn't like the primitive reflexes being tested virtually. That was a challenge, and I really want to do a good job, so I need to have that done correctly. Right. Yeah.
Perfect. And also, I'm going to make live directly after this call. If people go to neurofitconnections.com/Q&A, you'll be able to see this video and book an assessment for $50 today.
Yeah, let's get some people in here and help these kids out. No need to struggle.
Perfect.
Right?
Those are all the questions that I have. There were a lot more comments, but comments lead to just giving opinions. So I at least gave the ones that I think gave miscommunication. And next time when we post on the Quora page for a live Q&A, if you put any contact information or if you reach out on the Quora page, we'll be able to share this link directly with you instead of having to comment on the post.
Close-up sauce. Do you have any questions, Amante?
Just how fast can I enroll the rest of my children? No, I
You only have one left, right?
I do. I am a firm believer that you guys are more than the experts in this field, and I've seen it firsthand. So I just love that people
Wow.
get to ask internet questions and they have access to you.
Yeah, I do too. And I love to be able to learn more and share more. That makes me so excited to go, oh, I can be better now. I know this even better. And immediately it's needed. It's so fun for me. And to see the changes and to meet the kids. I just love that. I have the best, I can't even call it a job. I have the best life ever. I get to spend my time doing things I absolutely love and seeing the changes in the kids that when Darion read, wow, I was even taken back by that. That was an amazing moment. So I'm so glad. I said, keep reading. I'm going to video it for mom. And he was like, okay. And he was smiling while he was reading. Did you see that in the mirror?
It was the happiest video I've ever got.
I know. Wasn't that awesome? And he was funny. And you know what he said to me after that? He read that passage was he said, let's do a harder one. And I was like, okay. So we went to high school and he read just as beautifully. And then, but when we stopped, he said, I have no idea what I read though. And I said, that's okay right now because you're focusing on the reading. You're not going to pay attention to what it is and make sense of what you're reading. We'll work on that. I said, as you read, and we're going to work with some simpler things moving forward to see how he is comprehending. If he's not comprehending well, then that's something we'll address. But if it's simply because he's focusing on reading the words because he's never been able to read it that well, that makes sense to me. But his eyes were a huge issue. His eyes were a huge issue. The things I can tell you we experienced, yeah, it was pretty amazing. And I took a course just to be better at eyes for him because that it was called for.
You are
And
just-
yeah, it was awesome. I love working with them. Your kids are the best kids ever, by the way.
Well, thank you.
They really are.
I'm slightly biased.
But
Oh,
I'm unbiased and I love her kids.
So there you go.
Yeah, they're awesome.
my only other ask is that a lot of these people just asked a very blanket question, and
Mhm.
we're looking for feedback online, and they don't really know what NeuroFit is and what NeuroFit Connections can provide for them. So when we say, visit us online, they're going to go there and they're going to get all of the information. But are you able to give a small overview of what the program is, what it does, how it can help?
Yeah. So NeuroFit, I don't want to say helps kids with these things because we help any child that is struggling socially, academically, physically. We can address any issue and get to the root cause because it's all neurological. So we take it from that standpoint. We have a lot of high-end tools, but we also do it actual normal, just moving. So we're going to help them learn how to move in a way that helps their brain grow and those struggles go away because of that.
Right. So we start with an assessment. She talked about the primitive reflexes. And then we look at all kinds of things that could possibly be going on and create a plan which is customized to each child to help them get to where they want to go. So a parent will start in the assessment or before the assessment, we'll start with an intake form and one of the questions we ask is, what are your goals for your child? What do you want them to accomplish? And we build a plan around that. So if we see that, for example, which a parent might come in and say, well, my kid has ADHD. And go, well, no, we don't see that. We're seeing this.
Maybe anxiety or something else.
Exactly. But those are the things. And then so when we want them to focus and concentrate, we can actually point to the reason you're seeing that they're not being able to focus, concentrate, or the reason you're seeing that they're wiggling so much, or the reason you're seeing, whatever, is because of these things. We can actually point them out and say, this is what we're seeing, is this the actual causes, and we can get rid of those, and you'll see the behavior change as well.
Mhm. Did that answer it?
Does that answer it?
It does perfectly.
Perfect. Yeah.
And then neurofitconnections.com will lead you to requesting a free call as a follow-up from the live Q&A. I believe it's 15 minutes. Then it'll also lead you to the assessment, which is $50 today. And it'll also lead you to a ton of content, articles, blogs, like some of the most frequently asked questions, anything that you're kind of looking for, you can search throughout the blogs to find that as well.
Love it.
Okay. So
Yeah.
how do we, you can just wrap it up with however you want to, and then probably put the butterfly on the screen for a little bit so that we can pull it all together and then upload it into the Q&A section.
That works for me. All right. Well, I just really appreciate people coming and asking questions because, for us, the more questions we get asked, the more that
The more we can help.
the more we can help. That's our ultimate goal, is to be able to help. We did a talk recently where one of the things they said, well, we want to know why you're doing this. And we put up on the screen 50, the kids that we've worked with. And just that, that's really the why, is to see these kids go from struggling physically, emotionally, socially, behaviorally, to being able to be
Feel good about themselves.
feel good about themselves.
At the end of the day, I want a kid to feel unstoppable.
Right.
They can accomplish anything, and that's what we can provide them. Getting rid of the things that are making them struggle.
So they can be their best selves.
Exactly.
And
What
live
they
their
were
best
meant to
lives.
be. Yep. We're here to help.
And that's it.
Perfect. Well, thank you.
Hey.